This is Bawler. Hello, I have prepared an important and interesting video for you. Subscribe and write in the comments what you think about it. Estonia is constructing a modern wall of war, and the reason is Russia. As the global spotlight remains fixed on Ukraine, Estonia, alongside Latvia and Lithuania, is bracing for what might come next. Together, these nations have launched the Baltic Defense Line, an unprecedented regional initiative designed to turn their borders with Russia and Belarus into a formidable military fortification. This effort includes 600 concrete bunkers, hardened supply zones, and layered defenses all across NATO's vulnerable eastern frontier. This isn't posturing, it's a clear message. If Russia plans to advance westward, it will be forced to pay a staggering price. But why is Estonia taking point? To understand, we must go back to before modern Estonia and Russia even existed. Between 1940 and the late 1980s, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were republics within the Soviet Union. However, unlike most Soviet territories, they retained distinct languages, cultures, and national identities. Despite Soviet efforts to erase those identities through population transfers and Russification, the Baltic states stood firm. When the Soviet Union weakened in the late 1980s, these republics were the first to seize independence. Instead of maintaining ties with Moscow, they pivoted west, embracing democracy and market economies. By 2004, they had joined both NATO and the European Union. For the Baltics, NATO membership wasn't about prestige, it was about survival. Despite their proximity to Russia's power centers and naval ports, Vladimir Putin showed little initial resistance to their NATO admission. In 2001, he publicly claimed that countries had the right to choose their own security arrangements. At the time, Russia was still economically recovering, and Putin was focused on domestic consolidation rather than geopolitical confrontation. That all changed in the early 2000s. The 2003 Rose Revolution in Georgia and prior NATO actions in Yugoslavia signaled to Putin that the alliance was less about defense and more about regime change, at least from his perspective. NATO's support for democratic governments appeared, to him, as a direct threat to authoritarian regimes like his. Nowhere was this threat more personal than Ukraine, the second largest former Soviet republic. A democratic Ukraine without ties to Moscow was unacceptable to Putin, and that's where Estonia and the other Baltic countries come in. They weren't just geographically close, they were ideological proof that former Soviet states could flourish outside Russia's influence. Initially, the Baltics' NATO membership was viewed as largely symbolic, but after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, everything changed. NATO simulations in 2016 showed that Russian forces could take Riga and Tallinn in under 60 hours. Article 5, the alliance's mutual defense clause, would be meaningless if NATO allies were overrun before reinforcements could arrive. Strategists quickly realized the region's most significant vulnerability, the Suwałki Gap, a narrow corridor connecting Poland to Lithuania. If Russia seized this, it could isolate the Baltics from NATO support entirely. The solution? Build physical defenses now, before it's too late. This led to the January 2024 announcement of the Baltic Defense Line. Backed initially by $65 million, it aims to install bunkers, anti-mobility infrastructure, and defensive traps across hundreds of kilometers of borderland. Estonia's share of the project alone includes bunkers designed to house 10 soldiers and resist artillery. These are not outdated World War II fortifications. They are modular, quick to deploy, and strategically positioned. Estonia has also been building anti-tank ditches since June 2025, especially near the Russian border. These trenches are 13 feet wide, over 6 feet deep, and stretch for miles, designed to slow down or reroute mechanized units. Meanwhile, the country is also constructing new military bases, with a major installation planned in Narva to house 250 Estonian and NATO troops. What sets Estonia apart is its commitment. While other NATO countries struggle to meet the alliance's 2% GDP defense target, Estonia has allocated over 5%, totaling more than $3 billion in new spending. The money goes not just to tanks or aircraft, but to drones, battlefield networks, and modern mobile warfare. Lessons learned from Ukraine's fight for survival. And that fight in Ukraine has taught another crucial lesson. Resistance matters. Russia's plans to take Kyiv in days were thwarted by Ukrainian determination. Estonia and its neighbors aim to replicate this by shaping the battlefield from day one. Their goal isn't to stop Russia outright, but to delay, disrupt, and damage long enough for NATO to respond. Strategically, the Baltic states hope to turn their vulnerability into Russia's own weakness. The Kaliningrad Oblast, isolated from mainland Russia, is within striking range of NATO. Poland and Germany could launch counteroffensives from the west, forcing Russia to divide its attention. Finland's NATO membership doubles Russia's NATO border and further complicates any potential invasion scenario. The Baltic Defense Line is becoming more than just a regional project. It's a prototype for how smaller countries can defend themselves against great powers. It's a model of asymmetric deterrence, showing that even nations with small populations can impose high costs on aggressors. Estonia is also purchasing HIMARS and IRIS-T systems, both of which are designed to prevent Russia from easily achieving air or land superiority. But the transformation isn't only military. Estonia is preparing its entire society. By the end of the decade, it plans to add 4,000 new combat-ready troops, no small feat for a nation of 1.3 million. Military education has been introduced in high schools and families are preparing for wartime scenarios. Estonia is preparing its people, not just its army. This effort is not without complications. A large ethnic Russian minority, concentrated in the northeast, holds mixed views about the project. Surveys show significantly less willingness among non-ethnic Estonians to support military initiatives, including land handovers during conflict. Still, Estonia is pushing forward, believing that preparation is the only way to ensure peace. The hope is that deterrence works and that the Baltic Defense Line becomes a stabilizing force, not a battlefield. If it succeeds, the world will likely see similar lines drawn in other hotspots. If it fails, the consequences could reshape global defense doctrine for decades to come.